Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to create this very simple painted owl. And we don't start out with any pre-sketches, we just go straight to paint. We're going to be learning about a base color, so we'll be adding a base color. We're going to be learning about a detail brush. We'll be adding tiny fine lines, and we'll be adding, here's the fine lines, and we'll also learn to press the brush to create feathers and leaves. To start the owl picture, what we're going to do is we just moisten our yellow, and this is actually a yellow ochre color that we're using with my class here. And we're going to go up from the bottom of the page. So I'm at the very bottom of the page, and I want to go up. If I place my finger right in the middle, if you see the knuckle, it's going to line up near a little bit above the edge. Here's my knuckle, and here's the edge of the page. So my finger's in the middle, and I'm just going to put a line right here with that yellow ochre color. And this will eventually become the branch that our owl's going to sit on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm just going to go to the edge of the page, right off the page. So draw, let the hairs drag behind, and go right to the edge of the page. Again, later this will be transformed into a branch. We'll be adding some darker values to that later. And now we're going to do the same on this side. We just need to bring it to the edge of the page. As an artist, you may bring it up or you can bring it down. It's up to you. I'm just going to start off down. That's kind of a diagonal line. So a branch can be a free-form line. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It can be slightly wavy. Okay, so there's no right or wrong for your branch. So now we're going to make the owl. I don't want to have the owl's head touching the top of my page. I want to give a little space at the top. So I'm going to the very middle of the top of the page, and I'm going to jump down a little bit, and I'm just going to put a little mark with my yellow ochre. If you don't have yellow ochre and you're at home or in another school, just use a light yellow or yellow orange color. I like using a lighter value to start in case we make a mistake. Paint right over it, it won't show. So here we have our little guideline at the top. Now we're going to paint our owl. So we're going to bring on the bottom here, I'm going to start at the center. So find the owl top here, drop straight down. I'm going to put a little line at the bottom right before it reaches the branch. And I'm just going to come up, over and up. I'm going to get more water, stir into my color. You want your color to be able to flow, so you don't want it to be really dry. So I'm going to start here at the dot again. And again, watch how I'm holding this brush here. I'm holding it just like I hold my pencil. Draw over and up. This is going to be the base of the owl. He's sitting, or she. And then I'm going to come over at the top, and then I'll start slowly going down and connecting. Depending on the species of the owl, I'm going to curve around. Some owls have little tufts of feathers here around their ear area. Some of them, the feathers are more concealed, so you don't see it sticking out. Curve around and down. I like adding a little tuft on each side. It just gives more interest to this space at the top. So I'm going to draw a straight line up on each side with my brush. Not real big. And then just kind of do a diagonal to connect to the body. And we can fill this in with little feathers later. So we have our basic outline for our owl. Our branch can get thicker. I'm going to have you put some more branch lines in right now to fill the composition. So we can add a branch, and usually when they come off, they branch out from the main stem. They form either, I call it a Y shape or V shape, but they form an angle. So we go diagonally up. You can put one on this side too. You can branch out here. And the owl is resting in a tree. And he's surrounded by lots of branches. So we can have a tree, part of a branch coming down toward the owl. Can even make it branch out. Just draw them in with the tip. You can have one coming down this way as well. This will give some interest to place things. So we have our Y or V shape. Add another little branch using just the tip of your brush, because the branches are going to get skinnier. So there's our composition. Now we want to work on the owl eyes. So I'm just going to dip in the water, get a little more color, and I'm at the top here, the very top of the page, or the top of the owl's head. Let's do a V shape. Down, back up, and then we'll clear a space. This will be a nice space for the eyes. This will help us divide the owl head. So right in the very middle, I drew a V shape. And again, I'm using the tip of my brush. Now I'm going to do, from the V shape, this negative space here, in the very middle, I'm just going to put a dot. And I'm going to jump over here and put a dot. This will become the pupil, and we'll be able to add darker colors to it later, but for now, we're just leaving a dot. And then I'm going to make sure I load up, get nice creamy paint, and I'm going to rest my hand, and I'm going to do a circle around this with my brush. So watch how I'm going to do this. I'm coming out. It's going to look like a pretty big sized donut with a dot in the middle. So I'm going to do it as big as I can in this space. I'm just letting the tip touch the page. My hand is resting on the page so I can use just the tip of the brush. And I'm going to do the same on this side. I can adjust my shapes a little bit if I need to. And this is going to give an area to keep white. So you can use your imagination and basically color your owl any color you want to. It doesn't have to look realistic. Here the student did some green and filled in the areas with green. We are going to add the wings and the tail. Here is a blue value owl, totally abstract color. Here we have bright yellow. This one's a finished one. And then here's another golden yellow color. Okay? So we're going to do our wings, and we can have the wings coming down from the body. One student did one. I don't have that example here right now, but they did their wings. Here's a student example. They did their wings up in the air. If you want one up in the air, you can. So where you want your wings, it's below the eyes. I'm just going to come down and out diagonal. I draw down and out diagonal. And then you can bring it back to the body. Some students don't want to have wings. That's up to you. And the tail comes below the branch. So I come below it comes off the body, obviously, but then I come below the branch, and then you can just kind of do a wiggly line to connect it. Right in here. I just kind of do a wavy line. We're going to fill this in with some feathers here. Let me show you. So it can be wavy, just some feather texture. So the next step now is to give it a base coat. You can see how I did this with a bright yellow base coat. So you can change up your colors now and decide what color you want your owl to be, and then we're going to paint it all in. And I'm just going to choose a light yellow to fill in mine with. And some of my students are saying green. I would steer away from green, because if we fill our owl with, remember he's in the trees, So if we put them in the trees, we're going to be using a lot of green, aren't we? For the leaves. Yeah, blue is fine. So choose a color, and we're going to color it all in, just right in. I'm going to go, look, right over everything, even where I want my feathers to be. I'm just going to paint it all one color right now. So do that now, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. When you fill in, make sure every time you go into the water, then color. You want it to flow smooth, and you want it to be creamy. You want it to be a nice bright color. You don't want it to be really faded and light. And I would not choose black for your owl base. Don't choose brown because we're going to add brown feathers and other designs to this. So if you, like I said, if you want to do a brown family owl, you're using yellow or that yellow ochre color. Because then when we add all our brown feathers to it, it'll show up nice. So I'm painting everything in except the white of the eyes. So now my base coat is completely done. To finish the owl, we're going to take our detail brush, which is a smaller brush here, and we're going to add feathers. So here's the finished one here. So we're going to add some feathers to our owl. We're going to add some color inside his eyes. I didn't leave some white of the eyes, but this one has some white left. Make sure you leave some white of the eyes showing. You can put a dot of color. So I'm going to choose, my owl's going to have green eyes, lime green. So I'm going to take this and do some lime green eyes using a small detail brush. I'm not worried about the dot, I already did. So I do some lime green, let that dry. Now, since I have my lime green all on my brush, I'm going to show you how to print these leaves. This is the easiest way to make lots of leaves. Instead of holding your detail brush straight up like a soldier, if you place it to the side, you can print your leaves just like this. Press, press, press. I'm going to do some here, just coming off of the branches. It doesn't even have to touch the branch. Okay? And I'm going to do values of green. I'm going to do dark and light. So I'm going to add some darker value now, just like this, so that I have dark and light value of my greens. I can even add some blues and yellows, but just using the edge of the brush and pressing. To print the feathers, I make sure I have enough paint on my brush, and I turn it sideways into the paint. And then I'm going to lay my brush down sideways, and I'm just going to do a slight press and lift up. You can turn your brush slightly, press, lift up. Let me bring it in closer so you can see. I'm laying the brush down sideways, press, lift up. Press, the tip touches first, and then I press the whole brush in. You don't want to press the brush when it's straight up in the air. That'll just smash the brush. That's why I'm laying it down sideways. And I'm doing them in a careful row. Now you'll need to load the brush up with more paint as you go along. It uses up quite a bit because you're using the entire length of the bristles, which is the hair of the paintbrush. So I'm going in just a nice neat row, and I'm going to do layers of one color first. I'm kind of spacing them. This one's going to go in between. And then I'm going to do another value. So I'm going to wash my brush, and this time I'm going to do some magenta, and I'm just going to put smaller dots or smaller feathers in between. just to give it a little bit of a two-tone color. Just makes it more interesting. Now I do want to add some feather details. We're using the tip of my brush. I'm just going to draw in some of these feather lines. And these are on the wings. So I'll take my purple color. And we see the longer feathers on the bottom of the wing. So I'm going to go bottom of the wing vertically up. And I'm going to add some of those lines over here. And then I'm going to put some longer lines here for the long tail feathers. Put some in here. I'm not worrying too much about the branch right now. We'll paint right over that. And then I'm going to add little feathers, and I start at the base of the ear and I kind of flick my brush up. So these are feathers near the ear. And then I'm going to come short, tiny lines coming down for this area here, forming a triangle. This just gives a little bit of pattern and more interest to this area. Now we've done one value, so we can wash our brush. And this was purple, so now I'm going to go into some brown. We slowly work up to darker values. And I'm going to go back over and do the same thing now with some brown values. Here on the tail, I'm just wisping it, meaning barely touch, just to whisper. Now you want to make sure you have enough water on your brush. If you don't have enough water, it's going to be very dry. Let me show you on the back what it looks like if it's too dry. Let me dry it off a little bit here. This is what it would look like if it's dry. You don't want it to look like that. You can see how there's white spots. There's clearly not enough water in here. If you have to press really hard with the brush, there's not enough water on that paint. That's why you dip into the water, touch the edge of your dish, then go back into your color. You want it to flow solid. It's okay when you're wisping things like this. Touch the tip, pull out, that it gets a little dry on the end. That's because you're lifting the brush up. But you only can go for a few brush strokes before you need to load back up and go into the water and then color and paint before you can paint again. So you want it to flow smoothly. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the branch. So I'm going to go back over the branch with some darker brown. And you can add smaller branches as you're doing this. And then I want to do the beak. By now you should be able to have full control of your brush. And you can choose any color you want to go into your beak color. I'm going to start outlining mine with maybe an orange. So I'll work up slow, go from lighter to darker. And we're going to start off with a straight line, holding your brush down here near the metal. Straight up, I'm going to draw between the two eyes a horizontal line. I'm loading my brush back up, and then I'm going to draw a straight line down, and you can draw it as long as you want your beak. And then I'm just going to connect the top so it forms the letter T, a capital T. Now I'm just going to connect to form a triangle, and then I'll fill that in. Now with a darker brown color, I'm going to start at the tip and go up and curve over. This just adds a little shadow to one side with some darker brown. And then you could put a couple little dots inside here. Now you can finish your owl any way you want to. And here is the finished owl with some more leaves on, and I brought in some darker values underneath the branch, and I enhanced his eyes with some pattern and some dark color. But I hope you enjoy the lesson, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And if you'd like to be a patron and support this channel, click on the title and it'll take you to my Patreon account, and there you can sign up to join Patreon.